A good woman is hard to find and worth far more than diamonds. Her husband trusts her without reserve and never has reason to regret it. Never spiteful, she treats him generously all her life long. She's like a trading ship that sails to faraway places and brings back exotic surprises. She looks over a field and buys it, then with the money she's put aside, plants a garden. First thing in the morning, she dresses for work, rolls up her sleeves, eager to get started. She senses the worth of her work, is in no hurry to call it quits for the day. She's skilled in the crafts of home and hearth. She's quick to assist anyone in need, reaches out to help the poor. She doesn't worry about her family when it snows. Their winter clothes are all mended and ready to wear. Her husband is greatly respected when he deliberates with the city fathers. She designs gowns and sells them, brings the sweaters she knits to the dress shops. Her clothes are well made and elegant, and she always faces tomorrow with a smile. When she speaks, she has something worthwhile to say, and she always says it kindly. She keeps an eye on everyone in her household and keeps them all busy and productive. Her children respect and bless her. Her husband joins in with words of praise. Many women have done wonderful things, but you've outclassed them all. Charm can mislead and beauty soon fades. The woman to be admired and praised is the woman who lives in the fear of God. Give her everything she deserves. Festoon her life with praises.
Do you want to help me give a shout out to all our locations? We want to welcome you ladies from all around the world. And tonight I do want to give a special mention to our ladies in Asia and Africa because, you know, here in the UK and Europe, we're cheering you on because we know that sometimes you're not valued and cherished and honoured as much as you should be in your cultures. And we're so glad that we can be together on this journey with you and that we know that where you are, that you are making a difference and you are bringing kingdom culture and you're changing the culture that is around you because you are valued and you are important and every woman needs to know that. So I just want to say that because I know that you know, some of the stories coming out from your locations we're so excited about and, you know, we don't all get to hear those stories, but for some of them that we do, it really encourages us. So we just want to give a special shout out to you. And one day, wouldn't it be great if we could all have coffee together and brownies and cheese and all these wonderful things that make us so joyful. So anyway, I just wanted to mention you tonight. So yes, tonight is all about joy. We love a bit of joy, don't we? A lot of people say, is happiness different to joy? Well, yes, it is, because happiness is like when something happens to you, happiness, yeah, or there's a circumstance that makes you happy. It's like that fluffy feeling, you know, that makes you so happy. When your husband brings you flowers and it makes you so happy. Or you go and cuddle a newborn baby and it just gives you that lovely, happy feeling. It's the best feeling in the world. And then you have, I don't know, there's so many different examples when you get your first boyfriend and then maybe he becomes your fiancé and it makes you feel so happy. Woo, we love being happy. But, you know, it's a sense of contentment and happiness. And it is joyful as well. But joy is something different. Joy is gladness that's actually not dependent on our circumstances, as we've already heard tonight. Because some of our circumstances can be quite like that, can't they? And when our circumstances are like that, and the poo hits something, the fan, you know, we can choose to still have joy. Because joy is actually a fruit of the Spirit. So it comes from God, and so it comes from the Holy Spirit. And it's something that we need to cultivate and grow, isn't it? Because a fruit is something that we grow. So it should be visible. Joy should be visible. I know they said in worship, and that was great, about our soul is etched with that smile. But it's so good when it overflows and pours out to others as well, and it's visible and it's growing. But also joy is an amazing weapon. And I don't think we realize what a weapon. It's such a powerful weapon against the enemy. It's such a powerful weapon against depression and some of the things that we have to deal with in our lives. And if we have joy, we can come against it in a real power, and it's a weapon, and we have to remember that. And did you know, this? I'll just throw this in for free, but smiling and laughing uses more calories. Yeah, it does. You're all laughing and smiling at me now, aren't you? Yes. So let's have a look at She 31, what it says. Proverbs 31, verse 25. She laughs at the future, doesn't she? Bold power and glorious majesty are wrapped around her as she laughs with joy. She laughs with joy over the latter days. That is like the future days that are coming that she knows nothing about. We don't know what our future holds. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know what's in tomorrow, do we? But we can choose joy, and we can choose to laugh. And she is laughing at the future because she's thinking, you know, we talked about her, didn't we, being the bride? And she's basically thinking, it doesn't matter what happens, the end result is that she's going to be with her bridegroom, Jesus. And if he is really, like, sometimes we have such temporal thinking, but she's thinking ahead. She's thinking about eternity. And so she's not worried about anything ahead. But she's learnt this on her journey. She's learnt to choose joy on her journey. But she's not worried. And she doesn't know what's ahead, but she trusts, and she has peace. And those are huge. They bring joy to our life. So let's quickly look at a few joy stealers. I mean, a lot of us know what steals our joy, don't we? But circumstances, they steal our joy, don't they? And if joy depended on our circumstances, we would be so miserable a lot of the time. You know, when things don't go our way, it can cause us to be like, I don't know, not joyful. It can really steal our joy. But we're going to look a little bit at Paul tonight because he's famous for his joy, isn't he? And Paul's letters are saturated with joy. So we're going to have a little look at some of those as well. But firstly, we'll look at John 15:11. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete, which is fantastic. His joy is in us. It comes from him. It's fantastic. And then Psalm 16:11. You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with your joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. You know, we talked on when I shared the other Sunday about the life giver, about being in his presence. Being in his very presence brings joy to our situation because he is our joy. So Paul, 19 times in 4 chapters, mentions joy, rejoicing, and gladness. 19 times, despite the fact that he was in danger, he was in discomfort, he overflowed with joy. He was like shipwrecked, he was thrown in prison, he was chained up, he had death threats, he had the lot. And what did he do? He overflowed with joy. So we really need to look at his life as well. And I really believe that the woman of Proverbs as well, she overflowed with that joy. It's amazing. I might mention a few other scriptures, but I'm not going to read them all because we haven't got time tonight. So Proverbs, if you are taking notes, Proverbs 23:7. As we think, so we become. It's so important what we think because our outlook determines our outcome. And where do we get attacked? Where does the enemy come and rob and try to steal from us? A lot of it starts up here in our mind and in our thoughts. So Philippians is a book that actually explains the mind that we should have if we're going to experience joy in trouble. So and that we can choose joy despite our circumstances. So I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. Please, will you go away tonight? Don't have to do it tonight, but over the next few weeks, read Philippians because it's such an amazing book, and it's only a few chapters, and I think it will really benefit you, and it's all about joy. So read it. So circumstances, I was thinking of some of the circumstances we've been through that are such, joy stealers. And, when you think about it, you've all had things that rob your joy, like circumstances can be really difficult, can't they? And, I was thinking, gosh, there's so many, you've heard a lot of our stories, but there's so many stories I could tell you about some of the circumstances. So I thought about a time, well, it was quite a few years ago when we bought a little place in Spain because we thought we're going to do something special for our family. We're going to buy a place in the sunshine because every time we go to Cornwall, as much as we love it, it always rains. You know what it's like. It can be a joy stealer. So we thought we're going to go to the sunshine, a place in the sun. And it was after my mum had just died. And so obviously that was like a really huge thing and it was tragic. So we thought, right, we're going to have this as a focus for our family, go away and make some special memories. And so we got this little place and people used to say, oh, you've got a villa in Spain? And we were like, no, it's more like a shack in an orange grove. It wasn't really posh or anything, but it was a little dream that we had. I mean, Rosie knows. And so we had this little place, and it was like a bit of a hole, really. But we made it into a nice hole. And it became a nice little shack. We added some colour and got a few things from IKEA, made it special. And the people that we bought it off, his name was Pepe, and he said, can I still come and do the garden for you? And we were like, yes, joy. So he did. He came and did the garden, and it was a vegetable garden. So we had all these lovely things to pick from when we got there. And then a terrible thing happened. A few years later, he actually died. So the whole place became overgrown, and you could tell that nobody was living there, basically. And so then we had so many people just kept coming and robbing from us. They would come in. So every time we went on holiday, we were so excited to have this little place, and our little dream was dashed. And yeah, it was really hard because, we'd worked hard for it and we'd done it up and it looked cute and, but we were just there. We wanted to spend time outside in the sunshine, go to the beaches. And so when we got there, every time we got there, we must have been robbed maybe 12 times. So it was such a joy stealer because we were just trying to have a holiday. We were trying to make some memories, have fun. And I remember, it was such a dread when we got there and you walked through the door and you didn't know what was going to happen. And I thought, is there going to be squatters in there? Because once they actually stayed in there for a few nights and partied and stuff. And then we got there one time and they had removed the whole window out of the wall because we had these wrecker bars, we had a steel door, so it was pretty hard to get into, and there wasn't really much in there to steal. And they'd taken the whole window out of the wall, and we got there and there was a big gaping hole. So then we were like, if someone comes in the night, boys, you better have a garden tool each. They had to ward off any, So then they tried to get in down the roof and cause leaks in the roof, for when the rain came in, and that did a lot of damage. So every time we went on holiday, we were fixing things. Then this one time we got there, and I walked in, and the door was actually open, and I was like, oh, here we go. What's gonna, there'll be nothing there probably. And then I walked in and it looked quite normal, it looked clean, tidy, nothing seemed to be missing, it was great. Until I went to switch on the taps later, and there's no taps. They had taken our taps, they'd taken our shower, they'd blocked up our toilet. So I was like, Gary, where am I going to go to the toilet? He's like, here's a spade, and there's the orange grove. So it was all good. But it's just, we can laugh about it now. But at the time, it was really tough. And we were gutted because we were trying to have this nice holiday. But did it spoil our holiday? No, it didn't. Because we chose joy. We still had the sunshine, we still had the beaches, still had the nice food. And there's always things that you can be thankful for, even when, there's these kind of situations. There's always something you can choose that's joyful. So that was our Spanish story. Don't buy a place in Spain. Just borrow someone else's. So the other thing, joy stealer, people. Oh my goodness. People can be so annoying. Unless it's different in your experience. I mean, who gets annoyed with people? Yes, be honest, come on. Yes. So people, but we have to live and work with them, don't we? You can't avoid it. You can't avoid people. We do life together, and we shouldn't, be without people. But, we don't want our light to become dim or our salt to become bitter, do we? So we have to choose joy, and we can't isolate away from people. But people, they let you down, don't they? And you can't rely on people. Because expectation is huge, isn't it? And we all have expectations. It's like, when you get married, you're so excited because you get married and you have all these expectations, and then there's the there's the things you don't think about, like the burping and the farting and the and the snoring. And I'm not talking about Gary, because I'm talking about myself. That's just me, okay? So you have to laugh about these things. But it's true, we have this expectation, don't we? And people let you down all the time because you think, my parents were really great and they're going to be the most amazing grandparents. And then you're like, maybe they're not as great as you thought they were going to be. Or I'm just using that as an example. But there's, friendships. We get let down by people. We have expectations, don't we? And I think even more so when we're Christians, we expect things of people. And then we're even more let down. People are nodding their heads around the room. It's so true, though, isn't it? But it's important. Even people that you don't know. I've nearly had fights in car parks with people that I've never met before. I don't know their name. And I know it's pretty scary, but you wouldn't think that somebody you don't even know could be so annoying. But it's true. I thought she was waving at me, but she wasn't. She was doing something else. But, there's so many things, like even with Jordan, when we heard that he had to have this brain surgery, and it was so shocking, and we were so devastated at the news. But then I was so thankful that they found this thing. We had to go through the journey of the surgery and the recovery and all those things. But I was so thankful for the NHS. I was so thankful for the doctors. There's so many things that you can still choose joy in a terrible situation. And talking about poo, the emoji's going to keep coming up, okay? We went away for Gary's birthday the other week, and, we stayed in a nice little place for his birthday. And then the next morning we came out and went to get in our car, and a human had pooed at the back of our car. Yes, that's why I had to have poo emojis. Had pooed at the back of our car. Not anyone else's car, but our car. And they'd even smeared it on our car. So I was like, well, do you know what? We still had a really nice time. We still had a lovely steak meal, but you just have to choose joy, don't you? Because anything can happen. Really. But on that note, I'll just say as well, don't spend time with negative, moany people either, because it can rub off on you, and you don't want people stealing your joy. Okay, things. They rob us, don't they? People think that joy comes from having things. It's such a lie. In fact, they can rob us of our joy. And you've only got to give 2 kids 3 cars, and you'll see what happens. You'll see what I'm talking about, because they both got a car each, but they want the other car, and it's all-out fight. But the quest for things is robbing people of their joy, and they don't realize it because they have one thing, and then they want to go and get another thing. And it's like that quest, they're chasing after it because they want to possess something that's going to make them joyful, and it doesn't. And what it does is they find out that actually things possess them. It's dangerous. And and I think that's why it's so important that we as Christians can show people that things actually isn't what brings you joy at all. Then the last one, I think, is really worry. Like, worry is such a joy stealer. And a lot of it is just in our head. It's like what we imagine might happen, what we think might happen. It's such a robbery, and it can cause such depression, it can cause anxiety, it can cause so many things, because worry is such, it's like the biggest thief of all, I would say, because you're thinking something's going to happen that will never happen, and it doesn't happen, and so you can waste so much time on worry, and we have to choose joy over worry. And Paul tells us, he says, stop it. Stop worrying. It's an attitude of mind that we cultivate will determine joy or the lack of it. And then also in Matthew, it says this about, therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? It's so true. We can waste so much time worrying, and it really is a joy stealer. So, and I know I've said it before, but comparison, women, like, we compare ourselves, and that is also such a joy stealer. I haven't got that as a point, but I just wanted to add that in as well. So, attitudes to maintain our joy. We have to have a single mind. Paul talks about being single-minded, because a double man is what? He's unstable in all his ways. So we have to cultivate a single mind, because Paul's single-hearted devotion to Christ is expressed in Philippians 1:21. And what does he say? For me to live is Christ. For me to live is Christ. To die, actually, is gain. And if that's like how you live, that makes all the difference. For me to live is Christ. Paul's circumstances don't rob joy. He's not living, is he? Paul's not living to enjoy his circumstances, because he's like in terrible circumstances most of the time. So he's not living to enjoy his circumstances. He is living to serve Jesus Christ. He is living for Christ. He is a man who's single-minded and with purpose. So it's all about our relationship, isn't it? It's all about our relationship with Jesus. And he even goes as far to say, I'm not a prisoner of Rome, but I'm a prisoner of Christ. And he's quite happy about that. He's like, that's who I'm living for. I'm a prisoner of Christ. And that's Ephesians 3:1. So, right, it's important, this bit. Don't look at Christ through your circumstances, but look at your circumstances through Christ, because that changes it all. And that's how we overcome, that's how we choose joy, is by looking at our circumstances through him. It changes everything. So a submissive mind, which is Philippians 2:2-4. Christ first, others second, and himself last. That's how Paul chose to live. Christ first, others second, himself last. You know, people often annoy us, mostly because we don't get our own way. And also, it's because we put ourselves first, and other people put themselves first, and then you're going to have like a fight on your hands, because selfishness, if we put ourselves first and other people do, you're going to just end up having a battle. But the submissive mind doesn't expect others to serve him, but he serves others. And that's what humility is all about. Oh, hello, Joy. And the other thing is, we'll go to the next slide, is that joy, so Jesus first, this is an easy way to remember joy. Jesus first, others second and you last. And then you won't get so upset and stroppy and lose your joy, because if you've got things in that order, and actually the greatest commitment is to love Jesus with all your heart, mind and soul, to love others as you love yourself. So if you have that order, that spells joy, and it helps you. I mean, that's a great little thing to think about and have, because if you live your life like that, it's a winner. You're not going to lose, really, are you? So spiritually minded, Philippians 3:19. You know, most people on this earth, their mind is on earthly things, but we're told to have our mind on heavenly things. Verse 20, the things of this world, we need to look at them from heaven's perspective, from heaven's point of view, and then it will change your perspective. And then lastly, the secure mind. Worry is, like we've said already, is wrong thinking. It's a wrong feeling. And it's, you know, you get that wrong thinking towards people, towards circumstances and things. And so we need to combat worry with this weapon of joy. It's so important. And we need to live in harmony. You know, Jesus talks about us living in harmony and unity. So what do we need to do? We need to guard our hearts, because that's where the hurt comes in. That's where joy gets stolen. We need to guard our heart and our mind. How do we do that? By having the peace of God. We have everything we need. God gives us everything he needs. He doesn't hold anything back. So we have the peace of God, which guards our hearts and minds. How brilliant is that? So let's surrender our minds to Christ daily. You know, we know this stuff, but do we do it? You know, like I said, our circumstances can change. Like Paul went to be a preacher, and what did he become? A prisoner. He went to be a preacher, but he became a prisoner. But he had such joy. His joy came in winning others. So he was a prisoner, but he was still a preacher. And his circumstances brought the furtherance of the gospel, didn't it? And that, to him, that was all that mattered. He was chained to a soldier 24/7. Chained to a soldier. And they changed shifts every 6 hours, which meant he could witness to 4 men a day. And that, for Paul, that's a dream. He had an audience. He was like, this is brilliant. I'm preaching. I might be a prisoner, but I'm preaching Christ to these guys. And you know, that's all that mattered. But, you know, his chains gave him that audience that he might not have had. And it's so true, isn't it? And he even got to go into Caesar's court and speak to the officials, which he wouldn't have been able to do. But his case was so important, it gave him access into these places and into men's hearts. So let's see our circumstances, even when they're not good, let's see them as God-given opportunities. Because if we look at it like that, okay, this is a terrible circumstance, but this is a chance for me to choose joy and to actually perhaps show someone, like, you know, the love of God. So let's rejoice at what God is going to do instead of complaining, because being joyful is all about rejoicing as well, being joyful, full of joy, instead of complaining, because of Paul's chains, Christ was known in verse 13. And even, you know, when him and Silas, they praised in the prison. Like, have you ever thought about being jailed in prison? Would you be singing choruses and, like, singing his praises? And yet we hear these amazing stories and we're so slow to choose joy. What happened? A miracle happened. They got out of jail, and the jailer was saved, the whole family was saved. Amazing. So for us to live is Christ, to die is gain. We need to live like that as well. Let's be women that walk worthy of the calling. You know, sometimes I find myself moaning. It's quite easy to fall into the trap of moaning. Like in the morning I get up and I've got to go to keep fit, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to jump around for a whole hour. This is like so boring. How long do I have to do this for? Forever? And yeah, probably I do. So I might as well change my attitude, because then I think, what are you doing? Why are you moaning? You've got 2 legs. You're fit and healthy. You've got 2 arms. You can jump around for an hour. Some people can't do that. They don't have a choice. They can't maybe afford to be a member. They haven't got the time to be able to go and do that. I'm so fortunate and I'm so thankful that I get to do that. But sometimes I find myself moaning. What are we like? Let's choose joy, because it is a decision and it has to become our lifestyle. And I just want to mention someone in the room, actually, that I want to just mention and honour, because her name is Vicky and she's here in Hereford with us. She's amazing. And there she is. Stand up for us, Vicky, just a moment. She's a hero, and some of you might not realise, but Vicky can't see. She's blind. And I was chatting to her in a cafe the other week, and she was volunteering. We have no excuses. She was volunteering, and I just want to honour you, because when I chatted to you, I was asking about your sight and like that you can't see and that you've been like that since you were born. And she said, yeah, but I don't let that define me. And she chooses joy. And like, we get to drive over in our car and see a beautiful view. And Vicky is here tonight. She's here with a smile on her face. And I am so thankful for you. Come on, it's great, come on. You really are a woman of valor. And you know, for other locations around the world, like Vicky she's an absolute star. She's a woman of valor, and we're so grateful that you're in Hereford, in our campus, and we celebrate you. And thank you for the joy that you bring. It's amazing. We're so grateful. So the other Sunday, I talked about Jesus, the life giver, but he's also the joy giver. Our joy comes from him. We can be joyful because of him. And look at this, Hebrews 12, verse 2. His example is this, because his heart was focused on the joy of knowing that you would be his. He endured the agony of the cross and conquered its humiliation, and now sits exalted at the right hand of the throne of God, because he was focused on the joy of knowing you. And me. I mean, if that doesn't give you joy, he endured the cross for you, and he went through that for us because of the joy that he was going to have in having a relationship with us. I think that's just amazing. So let's choose eternal thinking and not temporal thinking. You know, joy is so linked, isn't it, to praise, to gratitude, to thank him for our relationships, to thank him for our circumstances, whatever they may be. Let's laugh in the face of adversity. Let's be those women. We can do that. And I know Alex had the Woman of Valor. She's laughed in the face of adversity. I know some of her story. And she's choosing joy. And also learn to laugh at yourself. You won't get hot. I mean, as I've got older and more confident in age, you just got to do it. Just laugh at yourself. And if something funny happens to you, share it with everyone and make them laugh, because let's be joy givers. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And if that's the truth, and it is the truth because it's the word of God, then if we want to be strong and we want to be women of valor that bring strength to others, then the joy of the Lord is our strength. It's a flipping weapon, and we're not using it like we should do. So let's grab hold of it by both hands and swing that thing around. Let's praise him with everything. I've already said joy is a fruit of the Spirit. It should be growing in us. It should be visible. It should be overflowing out of us to others. And listen to this. In Philippians 4:4, it says, be cheerful with joyous celebration in every season of life. Let joy overflow. You are united with the Anointed One. That's powerful, isn't it? Be cheerful and celebrate in every season, and let joy overflow. So get around others that are joyful. Be a joy giver. You know, Gary often says to me, oh, I love being with you, because he says, you bring me such joy. I don't realise I do it, but apparently I do. I don't know how or why, but I make him laugh for some reason. And he likes hanging around with me, so that's all good. It's great. I just got to deal with the snoring of mine. So Women of Valor, let's choose joy today and every day. We do have a choice to do that. Let's choose joy today and every day. You know, I always think we're all on a journey of life. You can either make the journey fun, or it can be boring and depressing, and it's your choice, really, in a lot of ways. You know, whenever we used to go on a journey with the kids, we'd always take things on the long journey to make things fun. It's the same in life. You have to just, make it fun, make it what it is, have fun on the journey. And I shared the other week about going into the hospice, and I know that's a place where people go to have their last days. But, you know, I want to be able to go and overflow and take joy into that place, because I met with the volunteer guy. He's been to church twice as well in Hereford, which is awesome. And he's really keen to partner with us in freedom, which is awesome. And so if there's anyone else that feels that they would like to be involved, just come and speak to me after, because even if you can only give a few hours a week, I just think, you know, he said we want it to be a happy place. We don't want it to be a sad place. It's a lovely place where people have, if they like gardening, they've got allotments there. There's so many lovely things for them to do. And I was like, well, if I can go and bring some joy to someone in their last days, I want to be able to do that. So think of ways that we can overflow and bring joy to others. And so just to finish with, let's practice this, girls, by, you know, we've had some difficult situations. If you've had things that you're going through, maybe share them on social media and then just hashtag it, choose joy. Let's spread the joy, because I just think when people see that, they'll be like, on Facebook, they'll be like, oh, you know, these people, they keep choosing joy, and that situation sucked. You know, maybe you could use the poo emoji as well, and then put choose joy. I mean, but, you know, we can do this together, and we need to cheer each other on, encourage each other in finding joy, because it is a weapon and it's a gift. It's a gift from God. So that's my message to you tonight. That's God's message to you, ladies. So we'll say goodbye to the ladies on the screen.